So when you climb up on that butte that we wouldn't have allowed you to climb on if I had seen you, yeah. What were like? Was that as challenging and as scary as it looked, or were you like, yeah? Well, I freaked out when I found that footage.
So when you
time out, because we're not doing an intro. Come on, if you think we're doing an intro for this one, we've been on a break for like 3 months.
Almost 3 months.
There is this moment during the filming of the Maah Daah Hey 100 this year. Aaron, you were in charge of all the long shots, so you would be on this lens that could see like a mile away. You had this big heavy tripod, and we would say, "Go find stuff." This is unbeknownst to me. I'm off in a truck with one of our drivers at this time, trying to find Gordon and Thomas, and you are climbing literally up the dome onto the top of a bluff. And you told me the next day or that night, I'm in kind of a precarious spot. And I just said, make sure the Forest Service doesn't see you if you're up there.
Yeah. Because
although we were permitted, I didn't want you to do anything that would get us in trouble. Then I saw a video of where you went like a month ago when I was sorting through the pre-footage. How did you not die?
So
hopefully Martha's not watching this or listening.
We're all good. I'm here now. When we were out the day before the race, scouting everything, in that specific spot, Alex and I hiked back half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile. It's not super far. And then we kind of just looked up, and I was like, okay, there's the spot. Like, you can see it. Basically what it gives me a shot well over a mile kind of down the valley. And then that's when, you and Matthew were coming back in the pickup, shooting them as you're driving. But you had also said, make sure Forest Service doesn't see you.
And that you're safe.
And then correct. Yeah, that was the first direction.
That was the bigger for our wives at home. We were always trying to be safe with what we were doing while avoiding the rattlesnakes, while making sure a mountain lion didn't drop on us. All those things.
So, pros and cons to scouting everything. I didn't bring anything with me. So Alex and I just walk out there. And I have 2 free hands and 2 free legs to just climb stuff. And so the whole time I'm looking at this bluff, I'm thinking like, okay, can I do this with the tripod, which is large? Can I do it with my backpack on and all my camera gear and stuff like that? And so I have to kind of mental rep that. And so I scurry my way all the way to the top, which I'm pretty sure is what Alex shot when he was shooting me up there.
You were fully scrambling.
And I didn't end up shooting at the very top because 2 things. There's a chance of a decent wind on race day. And so I was like, I can't be up here exposed. I don't actually know how gusty it's going to be. And then second thing, I had on B-roll day, I had this bright red shirt on. You could see me from a mile away. On race day, I don't remember what I wore, but it was something that blended a little better. And so it
was a less red shirt, but it was still red.
I came down to a more of a flat top. So it wasn't at the very top that I shot, but it was a few hundred feet up probably.
Gotcha. Well, the footage is stunning. I was just terrified when I saw the actual video of you scrambling around. Welcome to Stable Cyclist, everybody. It's been a hot minute, or almost 3 months. We have both emerged from...
That's the correct
from coaching. We talk often when you're on this show. This is not an Ask GP anything. We're just catching up on life and involving the listeners and viewers in this. But we've talked about how we coach. I coach soccer, and you coach football, the American kind, as I would say. Yeah. And our seasons in the last few weeks have wrapped up. And with every intention, we were like, yeah, sure, we'll do an Ask Me Anything, or we'll get together and do it. No, we get submerged so deeply into what we're doing that we don't come up for air. Both had real successful seasons, by and large, and real productive seasons. But now we have kind of gotten our rest and we're back at life and kind of resuming the other parts of our life. And I was in town tonight to interview you. You're the second to last interview for the documentary that is coming up. We'll talk about that in a little while. And I was just like, hey, we're gonna bring the mics and hook them up and have ourselves a little podcast here. So that's what we're doing, man. But how you doing?
I'm doing well. Like you said, it's time to catch up a little bit. Time to catch up with family a little bit. It's not like I work all day, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But man, it's hard to separate sometimes. Your mind is occupied, and it's like, so I'll sit down. Like, this is not coaching college football. I'm home some, which is good, obviously, and I'll sit down and eat supper. But it's still, some nights are better than others as far as separating yourself and being like, okay, I'm just home. And so now, like today, I think I was home before 4:00, and it's like, oh, that's nice.
You almost don't know what to do with yourself at that point when you suddenly have free time.
And it's a major adjustment for my wife and kids. And Kelsey says it every season. Like, I'm glad you're home, but also you're throwing a wrench into every system that we have at our house.
Absolutely. That's a conversation echoed in my house as well. So my wife is pretty stoked that I have been able to kind of transition straight into like the documentary work, because it kind of, for that reason, allows the house to kind of keep its natural flow in a real healthy way. So yeah, like let's talk about that a little bit. The last time people kind of maybe saw us, well, they didn't. We recorded a
like 40 minutes probably.
Yeah, we had like a 40-minute podcast on the drive home from the Maah Daah Hey 100 with you and I sitting in the back of a truck, catching up, talking about the race. We talked about the Olympics.
Yeah, it was wide-ranging.
It was, yeah, and part of the reason you never heard it, dear listener, is because it was very wide-ranging. We were extraordinarily exhausted, and we were just kind of like all over the place. And some people really like that.
Right.
But yeah, and then also the device we recorded on had some issues, and I wasn't super comfortable putting it into the ether. But here we are. Let's talk a little bit about that day, or it was a 4-day weekend for us as a film crew. If I were to just point blank walk up to you and be like, what was your highlight, or what were some like 2 or 3 highlights from that weekend? Very different from a year ago when we went out to film Tyler and had this like, what just happened situation on our hands with Kelly McGelkey that turned into a feature-length film. This is very different. We went out with a full team, full crew, a lot of good friends in the group. Yeah. What were your highlights?
Yeah. Number one highlight probably was bringing so many guys with us. It was so fun and not that last year was bad by any means. This was just the 2 of us. But going hand in hand with like actually kind of knowing what I was doing, despite me scaling bluffs and stuff like that. Having other guys with us and then actually having a plan written down was extremely helpful for me, but also just it helped it be fun because you kind of just knew order of operations for the weekend. And then obviously like the race. So I've been at the race twice now, and the first time was not normal as they went out and back. And so I actually got to see the race kind of how it was intended to be raced. And then you get to be on course when you're shooting the race. And if you're driving SAG, you get to see some of that stuff. I get to do a little more hiking, so I'm back a little bit farther into the race. And so it's just fun to be out there and see everything and just kind of be there.
Yeah, most definitely. Like it was fun to have other people with, and by and large, we brought people with that we knew really well. Yeah. That we've done a lot of life with, and people that I really trust, which is why they came with. A lot of people were questioning why, like, of the 6 of us in the crew, we had one guy who was licensed to fly a drone, so he had some experience. We had Alex, who shot all of We Are from Pelican, but on an iPhone, not on a cinema camera. And then you, like, people who watch the Maah Daah Hey might think, like, oh, Aaron's really experienced. No, like, we're sitting in your classroom right now. Like, this is what you do. So we were a super inexperienced group, but everybody was really good at problem solving, and everybody was with for a reason. And ultimately, like as the day played out, we saw that like get amplified big time. And then the other fun thing for me is like if I can't be there racing, I still get to be on my bike because a lot of the things that would get assigned to me required quite a bit of riding,
Right.
And sometimes really hard riding. I think like around Check C, I had like a 2-mile stretch alongside the road where I had to ride by them, and the final note in my box was "ride until you puke," which I nearly did, to try and keep up with those guys and film at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was just so much fun to be there and to experience it. It really helped that it wasn't like the day before the race was 108 degrees and it was awful, but the day of the race it was only like 85,
Right.
and it was really manageable, and we weren't worrying about like, or our crew members going to tip over while we're trying to also like follow these elite athletes. So
Yeah, and the nice thing, like with the heat too, like when the race starts is it 6 a.m.? It starts at 6 a.m. Like because we were following this year, 2 guys attempting to break the record on the course, they're almost done before the high temperature hits for the day. Not that it's cool in the Badlands very often in August, but largely until noon you're fine. And this year we were fine the whole time because high temperatures were in the 80s. The day before, that was not the case, and we went through water like no tomorrow. So speaking of the film, let's just talk quick. It's in progress right now. We just mentioned that I was second to last set of interviews. So let's just give an update on kind of where that's at, the progress that's been made over the last few months since we did the initial shooting out at the actual race, and potentially what's to come over here in the next couple months.
yeah, with any of these projects, and I've done a lot of them now, your big concern, is it's happening. Like we talked about this in your interview, like you are watching it all play out, and as you're watching it play out, you're kind of thinking, I think this is what the story is. I'm pretty sure this is what the story is. And then there was a point in the day where we were like, I'm 100% sure where the story is. And by the next checkpoint, we were all standing around looking at each other like, well, I have no idea where this is going now. Like that, what just happened? And so, by the time we got to the end of the day and we were driving home, or we were driving to Dickinson to stay in a hotel, I knew, okay, I'm 100% certain this is where we're going. And that's my job, right? As the writer. Right. I have to do the heavy lifting now once we're done, and I have to figure out, and I kind of knew in my head, I think this is where we're going to go with this story. And I talk a lot with Kelly McGelkey about this because he works in the film world and he's just gotten to be a really close friend. But the danger you worry about is you think this is where the story's going. Do your characters who lived the experience that you filmed, did they experience what you think you're going to tell? And so...
And then can you communicate that to the audience who may or may not know anything about the race, the course, or the history behind it?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like a lot of tension came out of my life with this film. 3 weeks ago, I was down in Norris, Tennessee, which is just outside of Knoxville, probably about an hour. And I got to hang out with Gordon Wadsworth and Thomas Turner, the 2 main protagonists in the film in this year's race. I got to hang out with those 2 guys over the course of 4 days in Tennessee, and like just do really like south of the Mason-Dixon line type stuff. And it was really fun. And as we sat down and did the interviews, and these are long interviews in a film like this, they resonated the same story, and they told the same story that in my head I was like, I think this is where we need to go. And it is such a relief when that's the case. And I got back on the airplane in Knoxville to fly home to Fargo, and between Knoxville and Fargo, I'd written the whole thing. And then it was just going in and editing it, and which were, I say we, because it's a lot of like, hey, Aaron, look at this. Hey, Kelly, look at this. Hey, Nick, executive producer, look at this. How are we doing? It's a lot of going back and forth, but I'm about halfway through that process right now. I need to be done in less than a month. and it'll be tight, right?
Yeah.
But that's the reality of life. When I was coaching in the middle of the season, I didn't really have the ability to fly to Tennessee for 4 days and see those guys and finish filming. And so we will be done with everything. It will premiere in Watford City, North Dakota, which is the town near the start of the Maah Daah Hey 100. It will premiere December 7th, which is a Saturday, and there's a theater in there that we'll use that Nick. It is also part of the Maah Daah Hey, or the land race, Maah Daah Hey race series, we'll just call it that. Yeah. It's their like volunteer appreciation night, and they do like a dinner, and then we'll do the film. Last year it was in Medora. This year they've moved it up north to Watford City because it's a better venue for what we're trying to do. So it's really exciting. There will likely be a premiere in Pelican Rapids this year, and probably a Q&A with like all the film crews, since everybody's from Pelican one way or another originally. And then there potentially are some film premieres in other places, but there aren't any details on that yet. And so I'll hold off on sharing about any of that.
So we're getting close to wrapping up this version of the Maah Daah Hey film series. And you've talked in past episodes and past interviews that you have been working on other films in the series. So where are you at with those? What's the update on potentially the future of the film series as well?
Yeah, and I don't even know if people listening or watching know that it's a series at this point. I think like a lot of people know about the first film, and they know there's a second one in the works. If you follow me on Instagram at The Stable Cyclist, you would know that there is a third film for sure in the works that I started working on in June. My very good friend Tyler Huber and my friend Ian Easton out in Bismarck, they told me at some point in this, like as we started the podcast a year ago, they like, you should go do a podcast with Jen and Lauren Morlock, who are the bicycle shop owners in Medora. And they just said, there's a story there. And I didn't really know how a podcast would go. And I reached out to Jen, and I was like this was a total cold call text, right? You don't even know who I am. She knew who I was because she met us at the premiere last year. But I said, I'm interested in doing something, and I don't know what it looks like. And she said, why don't you come out and do a ride along with me as we shuttle around some group? And they do shuttles in the Badlands, so people pay like good amount of money to come from all over the country. They want to see the whole Maah Daah Hey Trail, the 100 miles, but they don't really know the logistics of it, so they will pay to get their stuff like schlepped around to they'll go from Bennett, and then they'll go to Magpie, and then to Elkhorn, and then to Wanigan, and then they'll finish. And that people like the week I went out there in June, I went out there with my camera and like no expectations. I'm like, I'm just going to go out. These people were coming from Spokane, Washington. They knew I was going to be there filming. I was adamant that like, you have to tell them I will be there.
Right.
And then I just rode around in a van for like 15 hours and heard a ton of stories. At the end of that time, I was like, oh, we actually have a whole film here about Jen and Lauren and their influence on the Maah Daah Hey, their influence on North Dakota cycling, just their influence on the bike industry in general. And so that is something then I started really working on, like an actual film that is, taking me to different parts of the country to, chase rabbit trails essentially. And I don't know when that's going to be done. Like projected date would be maybe like fall 2025. That one's not like under the gun. It's not financed at this point. I've just been kind of like, as I work on other projects, I'll like take a little money and like set it aside to go work on this project some more. So if you want to finance that, go for it. Reach out to me at the Stable Cyclist on Instagram. But yeah, it's a really cool project we're working on. There's some very beginning works on 2 other films that I don't have enough in motion yet where I want to publicly say what those are. And then of course, like the big one we want to get finished is the original that never got finished, and that is Maah Daah Hey Back to the Start. And that's telling my story, and that's the mental health project. All of this started because of my accident. We were supposed to a year ago go out and shoot me racing, and then I had this horrible accident, and it kind of wrecked the last year of my like physical life, but I was able to do a lot of other stuff, get this first film done. And plan is next year. There's actually a phenomenal picture I'll post on Instagram in the next few days. There's a finish line photo of me and you and Derek Wallace. And Derek Wallace became a friend through a mutual friend of ours from high school. Derek got third in the Maah Daah Hey 100 this year. He is a true ripper. But over the last 2 years, he's gotten to be really like a daily, one of those friends you text with daily, right? You just check in on life. How's it going? We talk about bikes. We talk about life a lot. We talk about trucks. We talk about whatever, right? And
bike shop owner too.
He is a bike shop owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, he owns Owl City Cycles down in Houston.
Check it out. Houston, Minnesota.
Yeah.
To be specific.
Down in the driftless region.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before, and we've done ads for them. But Derek's gotten to be a really good friend. And at the finish line, he had just finished third this year in the Maah Daah Hey 100. And you and I are talking to him, and he says, we're doing this next year. He says it to me. Obviously, he's not talking to you. But he says, we're doing this next year. And I was kind of like, like I can't ride at your pace, man. I don't think I can. And he goes, oh, I don't care. Like, I've gotten what I need to out of this race. I'll come do it with you at whatever pace we need to go, just as friends. And I was like, all right. So that's the plan. And there's a few more like surprises in the works with that. But the plan is next year we will go out and I will race Maah Daah Hey 100, and the film crew will come back and you guys are going to film it, because all of you on the film crew like are huge pieces of my mental health story that I want to tell, and you can help tell it, not only just like sitting in an interview, but like being there as we do it. So that's really exciting. And that one I'm not going to be like, we're going to turn it by December next year, because like I don't have a reason to, again, unless somebody wants to finance it. And we'll probably do a crowdfund at some point. We originally crowdfunded the first, which actually ended up funding the Kelly McGelkey, Tyler, the original Maah Daah Hey, funded some other projects while we kind of waited, because for a long time we were just like, I don't know when this is going to happen. You know, the concussion stuff lasted for so long. I'm fully clear now. I raced for the first time this fall. That was an experience. I raced marathon at Maple Lag and got third place overall. It was a really good day, but it was one of those days where I think it's kind of like reality for me of like, we can fight through things. We can do hard things. We might not, like, whenever we feel like we're ready again, usually we're never going to get to that point. We just got to step out and do it. Right. And all the pictures of me for that day, I don't look real great, because I'm like, you know, I put on 30 pounds over the course of a year, which is 20% of what I weighed before. Right. And I hadn't lost very much of that before I started racing again. And so I just do not look great, but it's just about like, get out and do it. And, you know, the weight has continued to come off and I'm feeling better all the time. And I'm excited to race again next year and do this, like, really go after it, and not as naively as I did in 2019.
Well, and hopefully this time around the temperatures will be in the double digits instead of the triple digits, so you can survive.
That is what we shall pray for.
That correct. And like now too, as you've started gradually getting back into the fitness side of the bike and not just storytelling too, like, you're gonna be more fit. It's gonna take time. You're not 23 anymore. Derek's closer to 23 than you are.
He is, but
he
only one of us is a man.
That is correct, and so there's advantages that come with that as well. It's been almost 3 months since you've dropped any podcast episodes, and I guess.
Well, you've put out as many podcasts as I have in the last 3 months, so.
That is correct. So now that the fall coaching season has ended, what's the plan with the podcast? What's that going to look like going forward into the winter, potentially? I mean, we made promises in August, and here we are. So what is the tentative plan, at least, going forward?
The intended plan is that we're going to get back on a once every 2 weeks schedule, which was very sustainable during the school year. In the summer, of course, I did one a week because I could. But during the school year, and especially right now with trying to get this film finished, like, I already have a couple in the can. Like, Gordon and Thomas and I did one while we were in the South. We don't we didn't talk about the race hardly at all. We mainly talked about other stuff. We talked about goofy stuff happening to them in Tanzania and all kind of like Thomas trying to fix us, make sealant with toilet paper and soap and a Coke bottle. We just talked about ridiculous stuff, right? And that'll come out soon. And then I'm going to slowly start getting guests back in. And it's exciting, and there's a lot of stories to tell, and some guests are going to come back on because they're different people than they were a year ago or 6 months ago when I had them on. But the podcast is going to continue. I like having long form conversations with people. I like building relationships that continue. And like as I was hanging out a lot with Gordon and Thomas, like as big as the world seems, you have conversations and you're like, oh, you know that person? Like, oh, how do you know them? And then they'd reach out and be like, oh yeah, I know who JP is. And and all of a sudden you realize you're connected, even though they're like living what feels like in another country because it's so far away.
Right.
And like our world is incredible. The bike world specifically is an incredible place to be a part of. And, we're going to keep bringing those conversations in.
Well, and like not to purposely bring him back up, but to bring him back up because he has to be on here eventually. Like Derek's got a story of growing up kind of around us to getting into the business world to now getting into the bike business world. And like that's a journey in itself. And he's ridden the Maah Daah Hey. Like he has stories and he can tell the best and the worst of the Maah Daah Hey as well.
100%. And he ran like for a rival team.
Yeah.
Like to us while I was coaching you and he was running on the other team. I like what? Yeah, so
it's great.
There's a lot of stories there. So yeah. And Chase Wark will be back on at some point. Chase and I actually, talked for like a really long time last week, just about how his season kind of ended and stuff with Lifetime Grand Prix. And there's a lot of exciting things coming up for Chase and potentially for me and Chase, but we're kind of keeping that on the DL right now. And as I announced it on the podcast, but yeah, there's a lot of new people, like every time I interview somebody, the last question after we turn record off is tell me 5 people I should talk to.
Right. And
people used to think that you only should come on this show if you had a mental health story. And I'm like, look, like everybody can be relatable. Yeah. Everybody's gone through stuff. Everybody has a mentality that they've used to work through something. And that means everybody has a valuable story. And so, like, some of these guests aren't going to necessarily, I think there's going to be less and less, like, total hitters.
Right.
Like, totally elite people. I'm just not interested in those conversations.
No. Or you're interested in them, but not necessarily for what the headline would be.
Right. Like, I don't care how you did an Unbound.
Right. You're cool. You're on Lifetime Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
What else can I...
Like, tell me about what it was like to work through your breakup with your significant other. Right. Like, I think that has more value. Right. And so those are the kind of conversations, not necessarily breakups, but like hard things in life that you had to deal with. Yep. And, I think that's why Chase Wark's episode was so powerful as we sat and talked and he got emotional about how lonely it is being a professional rider. Mm-hmm. And like, how in all forms of life we make these sacrifices to be successful, and sometimes it's really hard, and that's okay, and then he came on 2 months later to be like, hey, I like totally got stuck and here's how I got unstuck. That's valuable to everybody. Nobody cared that he won a race in North Dakota. Right. Like, sorry, Chase, I love you, but like, and he knows that too. And
no offense to North Dakota.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we ran ads for that race for quite a while, so we love it. For sure. All right. So here's a question. I'm gonna start asking people. Now we shift into we don't need to talk about gas station food. We both drank a Coke already tonight. I've got a Payday in my backpack right over there. I can see. I didn't even ride bike today. I'm just doing gas station food because why not? But one thing I have started to ask or want to ask people is like, we talk so much about documentary stuff. Mm-hmm. What kind of docs are you watching right now? And I know you've mainly been watching like Barnesville game film for the last like 3 months. Yeah. I'm like trying to figure out which one of their 6 plays they're going to do. But when you are sitting down, maybe you haven't watched anything, but what are you excited about watching?
I finally got to the point, I think it was last week. So our season's been done for roughly a week and a half now at this point. And it was kind of towards the end of last week. our school was going through like just an epic state volleyball title run, which was so unexpected. And not because we weren't good, we were really good. But in early September, our best player got hurt. And so then to watch a coaching staff just put the pieces together of like, okay, here's we're going to try this person. And then 3 games later, we're going to try this person. Now we're going to switch out a libero. And now we're going to bring back the old one. And like all these things, like from a coaching standpoint, it was masterful. And so that was a blast. But during this run, like I finally had time and part of it was we were down at my in-laws and they live on a farm out in the country and it's just quiet. And not that I live on a busy road in a big city, but it's still different than the peace and quiet. And so you just get to be outside. And I finally like had the time of like, all right, I'm ready to watch something because I love documentaries. Like there's a part of the reason I want to come shoot docs with you every summer. Like I don't know. I watch 10 to 12 probably at least a year. And I'm sitting here like flipping through my personal finance class schedule of like, okay, when can we watch Free Solo? Like it's time.
Yeah.
Like kids haven't seen it, which is a little scary. They need to. So we talked before we got on. Tommy Caldwell has a new one on Disney Plus. You guys go watch it. Shameless plug, I
Devil's
guess.
Climb, I think.
Devil's Climb, I think. Yeah, that's what you said. That excites me. Anything involving him and Alex Honnold, if Jimmy Chin's involved, like those guys are the best. And it's not always like my wife gets fired up sometimes when I watch climbing docs because she just thinks like the level of risk taking is too much that they involve themselves in.
Is this why you climbed the Butte?
I don't think so. But it's a combination of like seeing the beauty that they're just like in and around all the time, and then just like the adventure and story. They're such good storytellers. Yeah. And he's got a couple. If you haven't seen them, like you need to go watch them. That one's on the short list. I have probably a dozen of the ESPN 30 for 30s that I have queued up, and I actually did start one last week, and it was something about Ole Miss, which means it probably deals with some racist past.
Sure.
I think I watched like 10 minutes of it the other night, and I was like, this is really good, and I need to sleep, so I'm going to pause it for now.
Sure.
So it'll come back here soon. How about you? Like, have you watched anything? Do you have something on the list? What's happened recently?
Yeah, anytime I get on the trainer, I'll usually, watch something. I just recently finished Arctic Ascent, which is a 3-part series with Alex Honnold in Greenland. It's phenomenal. Like,
it's so different than his other stuff, like out in Yosemite and stuff like that.
And I watched it with some of my 7th grade students last year, and I thought they would be really bored with it, and they were just like transfixed by it. But he's a good storyteller. He does crazy stuff. Devil's Climb I want to watch. I have no interest in climbing. That's the thing.
Right.
Like I just like good storytelling. Yeah. I still have not watched last season of Drive to Survive. Yeah. And even if you don't like F1, I think it's just like the total like gateway drug into F1, and I love it.
It's just interesting characters.
Yeah.
And
they do a really good job in Drive to Survive. They don't focus on the dudes at the front.
Right.
Like the first two seasons of Drive to Survive, you never heard anything about Lewis Hamilton or any of the guys at the very front. Yeah. You were learning about all these mid-pack guys, and it was just like, oh, that's cool.
Right. Guys getting fired from their jobs, and you're like, you just lost one of 20 jobs in the world.
Yes. So I love Drive to Survive. There's some documentary called Cheer.
Boy.
It looks ridiculous.
Your 7th grade girls been talking about it in class?
No. Here's the deal. We're both teachers.
Yeah.
We've gotten fallen down the rabbit hole of ChatGPT. I know we have
for sure.
This, like, I have a whole class that I teach now that was written with ChatGPT wrote it for me.
Right.
Once I gave out all the inputs that I wanted. I frequently will ask ChatGPT things like, give me 10 really good sports documentaries.
And that's on the list.
Every time. Free Solo, always number one. Yeah. Doesn't matter if I say outdoor or any kind of sport or like, give me normal documentary. Free Solo, number one. It really likes that. Cheer has shown up on the list a lot. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if it's like a hip version of Dance Moms or something that I'm going to shut off after 2 episodes. But
so I haven't watched a second of it. So take this with a
hot take
massive
coming
grain
in
of
here.
salt. From my understanding is that it's something about competitive cheerleading. I don't know if it's more competition side or more backstory side. I hope for backstory if you're going to watch it. I'm sure the competition, anything we watch, once you get into a story, like that's pretty good. I heard about it on Armchair Expert, and it was Monica had watched it, who she was a competitive cheerleader in Atlanta or something growing up. And so then she was super fired up about it, I think. So let me know how it is, because if it's good, I'll watch it. And once I watch it, my wife will get into it. And she's not a cheerleading type necessarily, but she'll listen to a good story.
Yeah. All right. Last question. I've started to ask this to people. I believe Claire O'Leary in my last podcast, and maybe one before that. But I like to ask people, like, if you're going to go out and ride, if you turn music on, like, I never listen to music when I ride, ever. It's podcasts only.
Yeah.
Like, and unless I have like just some real banger intervals I need to do,
Right.
And then it's like, okay, we gotta be dialed, and then we're turning like the heavy stuff on.
Muse.
Yeah. Oh, way heavier than that, dude.
Okay. All right.
They're not gonna cut it. Yeah, like we're turning on like Under Oath or something, which I'll never listen to any other time. But
for sure.
We're gonna like. So I could ask you that, but I know for both of us right now, I'm not riding those kind of rides, and you just don't do that. No. So like, what has been like? I guess I always tell people Taylor Swift's Folklore album is an amazing album, but it is the soundtrack of my mental health fall.
Sure.
And like, so it's very like, it's so nostalgic to hear and just be like, man, that was such a dark place.
Right.
So what is the soundtrack of your life right now?
That's
like
amazing.
what's on a regular basis for you?
I am kind of in the same boat. I listen to a ton of podcasts. In my classroom, I listen to a ton of music. So the vast majority of the classes I teach are a little bit of lecture and a lot of project-based, individualized, like research your own type deal, and I try to make the kids find things they're interested in, because then they're going to learn stuff. And so while they're doing that, I will play music. I almost exclusively play albums, which for my junior high kids, I have to be really specific about what I choose. And for my senior high kids, I let it go a little bit depending on the artist and stuff.
Is the E rating, E symbol
right,
show
there's
up?
much fewer E's in 8th grade class as there is in senior high. But I really do. I'll cut out songs if I know. Like, what's
we won't
coming.
send this to Kelly, your principal.
Yeah, no, she's fine. So, but exclusively albums, because I think as much as CDs were part of how we grew up, like I still think artists intend for albums to be albums and like their storytelling and stuff. And so we're going to tie this a little bit into the documentary, but the last 5-6 years, I have listened to Ed Sheeran so much. And so if you haven't seen his doc, I'm pretty sure it's on Disney Plus. I think it's 3 episodes maybe. And it deals a lot with his, I don't know, honestly, at this point. I think it's his latest album at this point. And just stuff that he was going through in his life. And it's heavy. It's so heavy. And so like kids will hear like the 1 or 2 songs that they know that are probably more upbeat and positive, and probably a love song or like a first dance song at a wedding. And then like I'll hear the other 6 and be like, oofda, like this one's about his buddy that just passed away, and like this one's about this, and like it's a tough documentary to watch, and yet it's so good because he's pretty regular, just a regular dude, and his wife's just a regular person as well, which is pretty sweet. So he gets played a ton in here. I was just telling you before we hit play, like today I just went Lumineers, first album, second album, and just started from the past and worked our way present. And I think at the end of the day I got to their newest live album that they released, and it like I love live music. I go to way fewer concerts than I used to at this point in my life. As in, I don't even know the last time I went to one, but like when I got to that, I was like, this is like, these guys are just having fun playing music.
Yeah, that album's really different.
Yeah.
It's live at Wrigley Field. It's like 30 songs or something.
Yeah.
And there's not a band.
No. No.
It's literally like guitar. It's the two of them only.
Yeah.
So it's like guitar, singer.
Yeah.
And it's really raw and like.
It's the best.
Yeah. And the crowd, of course, just singing along like crazy because they're so popular at this point. Lumineers rumored to be fans of the Maah Daah Hey documentary, the first one. I can't give away more than that, but rumored.
Rumor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. That's such a good album. Usually pre-production of this album or this current documentary, I had days of the week in my classroom, and Lumineers Day was always Tuesday.
Yes.
And we would do exactly what you just said, of start early and work. Sometimes we would work from front to back or back to front.
And that it's unfair to my, depending on how you look at it, I guess, my afternoon kids are my morning kids, because the morning kids are coming in, they're hearing albums from like 2005 to 2010 every day. And my afternoon kids are hearing like 2018 to 2023, and they're getting like completely different experiences in my classroom. So yeah, what else is in the rotation right now?
Well, right now there's only one thing in the rotation. Normally, you come in and you get some chill piano music Monday. We're trying to calm down, ease into the week. Lumineers Tuesday, One Republic Wednesday. Thursday is usually a Denver mix. I guess the Lumineers should be in there, but like real heavy Gregory Alan Isaacoff and that. And then there's only one artist to listen to on Fridays, and that's Taylor Swift. And we play the full library, and we can't even get through it in a day. That's normally.
Right, Taylor's version, of course.
Of course, without a doubt. Now, we are in production of a documentary right now, which means, and we're like super tight on our turn time, which means I've got to be in like mode as much as I can while still doing my job really well.
Yeah.
Which means if you walk into my room right now, you basically get to hear every day like the Del McCoury Band, which is going to play things like My Appalachia.
Yeah.
And things like that. And it's like it's all bluegrass, it's all folk, it's all like total like Appalachia music. And like the third day after I was back from Tennessee, again, I work with 7th graders for 3 hours a day. One of them goes, "Mr. Peter, we don't have to listen to this stuff till you get the film done." And I just started laughing. And another one of them hits the kid and goes, "Shut up, man. This means we don't have to listen to Taylor Swift anymore on Fridays." And he says that as he starts like drumming to the beat of this Appalachia music on his desk. And so, yeah, in my classroom, we have a lot of that on right now. Just like this chill, like banjo music, basically.
Or strumming, picking.
Yeah, because like I don't listen to that normally at all. Right. And I'm working on a film where I have two characters where like that is the soundtrack of their
music
life.
Down there.
Like when I was living with them for 4 days and they had their Spotify mix just playing, like that's what it was. And whenever I'd hear a song that really caught my ear because I was on their network, it would show up on my phone. I'd just screenshot it and be like, okay, we're gonna ask Audio's link match later to find a song like this.
Right.
And so I've been working really hard at just kind of getting the vibe of that and feeling it. When I'm driving around right now, or when I'm not in my classroom, I've kind of become obsessed with Gregory Alan Isaacoff, just in general. Like I just think it's so like storytelling, soulful. Yeah. It moves my heart when I hear it. Really heavy on Appaloosa Bones album, and just. Yeah, I can't get enough of it right now. So that's my recommend if you're like, oh, what should we get into? Like, it won't overwhelm you. It's very interesting. It's very chill. It's good work music. So
all right, coming up tomorrow in Mr. Huggins' classroom.
Yeah,
Wednesday tomorrow.
Yeah, you're gonna have to change your themes if you bring that in. So
we'll have to. We can update them a little bit.
But
I do one thing. I don't know. It depends on the kids. Sometimes only certain classes get the privilege in my room. But I send out eventually, once I kind of get the vibe of the class, I'll send out a Google form and say you get one song submission. Obviously, I have to be able to play it in school. So for certain kids that limits what they choose, and then I'll just make a playlist with like their like 15 to 20 songs. Each kid gets one. I said, you got to narrow it down. Like, and I don't know that I can submit one song. Depends on the day, obviously. So my 7th hour personal finance kids, which is my 4th hour, they're never going to hear this anyways. But if my 4th hour kids hear this, they're going to be like, what? Like, we don't have, I said, no, you don't have a song. 7th hour does.
Yeah.
So.
I feel old when I ask kids to submit music.
Man.
Very.
Yeah.
We had them this year at soccer. This is a total aside. People aren't even listening.
Fine.
You're a real fan if you're still with us at this point. All right. Leave a comment on Spotify or YouTube if you're still hanging out.
We haven't seen each other in a while.
No. This is where if we look at the YouTube graph for like watch time, it is cratered at this point.
We've said Taylor Swift a few times. That'll give us a bump.
That's true. The algorithm will push it out. But so in soccer, we got a sound system at our field finally. We've continued, like we started with a totally blank field, literally grass, nothing, not even smooth.
No. Yeah.
10 years ago. Today we have built it up to full grandstand, press box, lights, now sound system, and so it was first year with sound system, which meant we're gonna have playlists before the game, and we're building playlists. Obviously, we're walking out to a WWE theme song when we come out onto the field. Like that goes without saying, right?
Correct.
And so we did that. I snuck a few other WWE intro songs into the hot mix because it was, it was a good time. But I told the kids, I'm like, you get one song. You each get one song. I maybe even said 2. I said, this is for warm-ups. This needs to be like pump-up music.
Yeah, it's ready to roll.
Yeah, like what gets you jacked. And I gave him the same thing. It's got to be clean.
Yeah.
Like a romantic song, it's out. Right? Swears, it's out.
Yeah.
Like your grandma's like gonna be in the stadium.
Right.
I cannot have you having swears on the.
No.
Like grandma's gonna be, abuela's gonna be pissed off.
Yeah.
So I had to throw like half of them out because they were all like, I'm not playing a romantic song that's slow while we're trying to get hyped to go beat like Cathedral.
Right.
It's like no, like we gotta like get ready. My team that I coach is extremely diverse. There's like I think 2 other white people on the team other than me. Everybody else is a Spanish speaker or Somali speaker. Yep. And so our hot mix pregame is amazing because I think the first time you hear English speaking in the mix is when Taylor Swift comes on and sings "I Forgot That You Existed."
Yeah, yes.
But I was shocked at how many kids like their idea of a pump up song is like super chill, romantic, and I was like, what? I don't know.
So, some people operate that way, like they want like the stringed instruments, and I went back and forth. Some people like. I remember in basketball needing a little more of that, just 'cause it's such a different sport, and then in football being like I need 3 days.
Metallica
grace.
Black Album play.
Right. And then I went through my junior year, and so the seniors always pick the music or whatever, and we had a CD player in the locker room, and the random CD mix goes on, and it was 6 days on the road on repeat the whole season. And I still don't know. I guarantee my dad hasn't listened to it since he was the coach. So I have occasionally, but I could still tell you every word. 6 days.
That's fantastic. How many times did Mr. Strand come out and just shut the CD player off because he wasn't happy with what was being played out of it?
Yeah, there's certain coaches that know what's being played and certain ones that don't, and he definitely knew, nope, this is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we've really derailed at this point. It's really good to be back. I promise we're going to start having some normal guests again. We're resuming some normal programming. I will even occasionally start put out videos, but a lot of what the channel is going to be moving forward is either film stuff or the podcast. Look for a trailer in the next 3-ish weeks. I guess it's November 12th as we record this. It might be the 16th by you hear it. 3 weeks puts us basically at the premiere, so maybe not in 3 weeks. In a couple of weeks, you'll see a trailer on this channel for the or on our YouTube channel, Stable Cyclist, for the documentary. But it's awesome to be doing this again. And sometimes you have to pause life, right, for a little while before you can resume things again, and that's kind of what we've done. And now we're back at it. So
we're back. It's good to be back.
Yeah. Remember, you're loved.